Atomic Heart, a game about sci-fi Soviet Union, extremely cringy one-liners,
Crispy critters,
and probably the main reason you've even heard about it in the first place. In this challenge video, I'll be attempting to beat it with only the glove, meaning all combat and environmental interactions must be done through the glove. So in today's episode, let's find out if it's possible to complete Atomic Heart by only using the glove. The game begins with our character, Agent P3, and our talking robotic glove companion, Charles, yap through a very lengthy cutscene. After that, we finally get to stroll the streets and run into some lore. Basically, in this timeline, the Soviets discovered polymer, which rapidly advanced robotics. We then get an order from our boss to retrieve an access key. After a lengthy elevator ride, we get to... Yeah, I get it, guys. After retrieving a key from the twins, we head to a nearby complex, but our transportation gets interrupted when the robots suddenly turn hostile. We crash straight through a building and get helped out by a friendly robot. As we try to escape, everything wants us dead. No, the robot we just met. When we wake up from the crash, we epically reach for an axe like we're poor, only to never use it. So, how did I deal with my first real enemy encounter? Very simple, I just walked away. Curiosity eventually gets the better of us and we get ganked by another robot. Thankfully, we're rescued by a local villager.
Take this key and turn it clockwise. I said clockwise, idiot.
Ah. He's just like me. Despite her best efforts, she wasn't able to hold them off. And then a massive robot knocks us away, launching us straight into an elevator. Now, the good news is that the robot murder mode was only activated in this complex. The bad news, we're in a complex filled with murderous robots. Still, things aren't completely grim. We gain access to our first weapon, the box. Using the glove's telekinetic ability, we're able to pick up certain objects. However, not everything can be thrown. I wasn't sure who was screaming in the distance, but I was sure I was next. I got a little flustered while still getting used to the telekinesis, so I retreated to a nearby safe room. Surely that thing can't reach me from there. Ouch. After putting enough distance between myself and the robot, I was finally able to take it down. We run into a few more robot encounters and our objective becomes clear. Locate the scientist responsible for the robot hostility and retrieve the codes needed to shut them down. Unfortunately, our search gets interrupted by a noodle bot. Luckily, we're saved. Once again by some random people. One of them happens to be a doctor. Our introduction is rudely interrupted by a clanker rocking a Freddie Mercury mustache. Instead of killing us, he decides to go for style points and tosses us out. We teach this silly thing a lesson about real style points and slap that mustache clean off with a cardboard box. We then walk through a very creepy hallway, and as we reach the end, the atmosphere suddenly changes, but not for the better. Waiting for us was one lusty machine.
Oh, what a stud.
This machine single-handedly puts the M in BDSM. That said, it finally lets us remove the axe from our screen. And more importantly, we unlock our first glove ability, Zap. It's not that strong, so the box isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We travel through a cable car speedway, deal with a few roadblocks, and eventually sneak up on the evil scientist. He manages to escape, leaving us with a few clankers. After dealing with them, we head into the next room, where we hear this.
That sounds like Petrov's voice. I hope that asshole's brains didn't get splattered all over the floor.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what happened. Our next obstacle to overcome is a birch tree. More specifically, restoring its ecosystem and bringing it back to life to open a door. To do that, we need to gather 4 canisters from different parts of the workshop. The first workshop is filled with these creepy mutants. One of these silly things got stuck, which gave me the impression that it couldn't move through a doorway, only to scare the living hell out of me when his buddy could. I went with a slow but steady approach, and once that was done, we entered the actual workshop. Inside, we had to create polymer in order to acquire the canister. This took twice as long as it should have because one of the clanker drones shoved me off the edge. forcing me to restart the puzzle. Still, in the end, we secured our first canister. The next workshop was guarded by regular mustache clankers, and all we had to do there was cool off a few boilers, and that made it too. Somewhere in between all of this, I also unlocked the mass telekinesis slam, which greatly increased my offensive output. We then quickly grab the third canister and move on to the final workshop, where we meet a friendly scientist. He sends us off to retrieve a polymer container so we can destroy this massive overgrown mutated tree. We guide the container back to the tree, ram it straight into the thing, toss a ciggy for good measure, and in all the chaos, the scientist dies. But at least we walk away with the final canister. With the tree fully restored, we're finally able to resurface, and our boss immediately orders us to make haste to another facility. Once outside, I farmed some robots since I still had a lot of upgrades I could use. We then ran into a small problem. We couldn't hack a gate needed to proceed. Luckily, the villager from earlier lends us a helping hand. She also shows us some unauthorized footage of a meeting between our boss and a high-ranking party leader. The leader is clearly stressed because if this whole incident were to become known to the outside world, the consequences would be severe. The party leader opens an investigation into the boss and openly states that he plans to visit the complex himself. So now we're on a timer. We need to clean up this mess before the official arrives. Around this time, I unlocked the freeze ability. Out of the 3 glove abilities, I definitely used this one the least. It was very situational, but still worth mentioning. We make it to the train station, but our transportation is quickly interrupted by Sonic the Hedgehog. Since we don't reach our destination, we're forced to take a detour, which means fighting this round army Swiss knife. None of the glove abilities deal any direct damage to it, so we have to erect these statues and bait the robot into ramming itself into them. After many such rammings, the ping pong is finally defeated. The door to the complex ends up being stuck, so we head inside to manually unstuck it, completing a jumping minigame along the way. Once inside the facility, we're tasked with assembling a robot by retrieving different parts of its body, basically summoning Exodia. Even though the game ramps up the number of enemies at this point, they stop posing a serious threat. The only real issue is that when the telekinetic ability is on cooldown, but even then, I would just disengage until it came back. After fighting through a sea of enemies and retrieving the right arm and a leg, we enter the next area. Suddenly, the door slams shut and boss music starts playing.
What's that crap in the canisters?
Be careful. That is a specimen called Plush.
The plushie wanted to get close, but not to cuddle. The biggest issue during this fight is that the telekinetic ability barely works. Sometimes it triggers, but most of the time it just doesn't. Because of that, I had to rely almost entirely on the zap and the chair. Basically, an electric chair. This turns into a very long and tedious fight, lasting a little over 15 minutes. After finally putting the plushie down, we are rewarded with the left arm. The head is locked behind a puzzle where we have to guide a ball into a hole. Except the ball occasionally decides to ignore the laws of physics. This entire segment takes about half the time it took to defeat Plushie, but as frustrating as it was, we eventually get the head. As we reopen the complex, the party leader finally makes an appearance, and immediately blames the boss for the massive fumble that happened here. But before anything can progress further, we black out. When we regain consciousness, we find that the entire squad that arrived with the party leader is dead. Then our boss shows up and conveniently shifts all suspicion onto some robots that suddenly attacked us just now. Before we can ask any more questions, we learn that someone is trying to broadcast this whole incident to the outside world. And the only person with that kind of access? The evil scientist. Yes, the same guy who lost his head. Of course, through the power of science, it was all a ruse. So now our new objective is to locate him and stop the broadcast. We isolate the connection and trace the location of the transmission. And on our way there, we commit some good old-fashioned machine-on-machine violence. During the confrontation, we get distracted and they tase our ass. It appears the scientist and the doctor are working together. While the two of them keep yapping, the word robot malfunction gets thrown around. And we go, malfunction, huh? Then why don't the robots attack the evil scientist? So yeah, the woman dumps him. After a very long drive to get here, we get to do it all over again and drive to another location in search of the scientist because he escaped. Along the way, we complete our mandatory manslaughter, or I guess vehicle murder. The car knew exactly what it was doing. As we approach the theater where our target is hiding, we're greeted by Billie Eilish, or in English, Billie Eilish. This thing isn't telekinetically resistant, so we're able to pound it straight into the ground. Once we get deeper into the theater, the game basically says, hey, remember that plushie fight you enjoyed so much? Well, how about a second one? This time there was no chair for extra damage, but there was a whole row of chairs to hide behind. A friend told me this was a Dead by Daylight thing, and then refused to elaborate. So if anyone knows, let me know. After zapping it countless times and occasionally slamming it into the ground, the plushie finally goes down in just under 11 minutes. After navigating this extremely confusing section totally legitimately by myself and definitely not with the help of a guide, we're forced to wait until the ballerina finishes her performance. In the meantime, we try to survive as waves of enemies assault us. After that, we finally confront the scientist. He hits us with, hey, don't you think it's weird Servitude robots had combat mode programmed in from the get-go? And then immediately spirals into a manic episode because he fumbled a baddie and offs himself. We pick up his head to extract the robot deactivation code from his memory. And just as we're about to leave, we get thrown into another boss battle. Like all the previous ones, I do the same 2 attacks over and over again until the big clanker goes down. After securing the head, we head back to deliver it to our boss. On the way back to the complex, we fight basically every enemy variant in the game. And of course, we get our mandatory plushie battles on 2 separate occasions. Once we reach the deeper section of the complex, we're hit with yet another plushie encounter. Apparently, the game decided the last one didn't count and that we must complete the trilogy. But even it seemed tired of this BS and straight up refused to fight me. After we finally deliver the head, the woman decides to enact her revenge, which sends us into some kind of mental state where we briefly become a furry and this sound effect just keeps playing. When we wake up, she calls us and goes, hey, really sorry about that, come meet me. There's something I really want to show you. And even our thick-headed character starts getting suspicious. Once we step outside, we're instantly thrown into a boss battle. After that, we enter the secret facility the woman wanted to show us, where she explains the whole ploy. The ruling party of the regime has been selling robots overseas. Once enough units were sold, they would activate combat mode and essentially take over other countries. But that's not even the worst part. The technology developed here was also meant to be used on their own citizens. It would completely remove free will and grant full control of the human body to a select few. So when she and the scientists discovered this, they organized the robot malfunction in hopes of triggering a worldwide scandal. We're then shown footage revealing that our character has a brain implant that allows full control over his body, along with mentions of a deceased wife. Oh, and the talking glove? Turns out that's a scientist our boss liquefied. Like, literally, he turned the guy's consciousness into goo. With this newly acquired information, we decide it's time to confront our boss. But as we're leaving the facility, our character enters a manic state and rip woman. We wake up to the villager who casually drops the, hey, I'm your mother-in-law, go avenge your dead wife. And honestly, we could have just walked away and called it there. But I wanted to see jiggle. And yes, it absolutely does jiggle.
What are you looking at, Major? Fight!
We fight one of the twins, and once we win, she escapes. Finally, we confront our boss, which leads to a fight with both of the twins, who turned out to be our wife. Everything about this is extremely twisted. That said, the battle is absolutely worthy of being called the final boss battle. It's not easy because something is being thrown at me every few seconds, and it perfectly sums up the challenge. Dodge until one of your abilities comes off cooldown. Once the final twin falls, the challenge is complete. The ending is kinda weird, but that's for someone else to unpack. My work here is done. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you want to say hi, leave a comment. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.